Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So we're working on a non-automotive project in this episode. And if you can see behind me, I have the first section of my pallet racking erected, roughly put in place. And I also marked out on the floor where I need to drill for concrete anchors. So we have 4 on this side, as evidenced by these blue circles. We have 4 on the other side, and that will fasten this in place. So I guess let's rewind and explain why exactly I'm doing this. So for as long as you guys have been coming along on these different episodes and adventures with me, the shop has been a disaster. And this center area right here is kind of a dumping ground for all things on casters. Every work surface is crowded, all of the shelves are completely packed, and there's not really any good organizational ideas or organizational principles put into place. So it's something that's always bothered me and something that's always been in the back of my mind is something that needs to be fixed, but I always just dealt with it and never viewed it as something that was a necessity. So I'm finally to the point now where it's, in all honesty, quite irritating to constantly be walking over things, be walking around things. I'm running out of space with all of my extra metal and everything, and it just is not efficient, and it doesn't make me happy to come in here each day, at least that portion of it. So I went and picked up enough racking to put 8 foot or 11 foot tall by 8 foot long by 30 inch wide sections around the center lift, and then I will have 24 feet of racking on this wall, 24 feet of racking on this wall, and hopefully that will be enough, in addition to all of these totes, to organize and get everything squared away and have kind of a fresh start for all intents and purposes. So we have all of this shelving or wire racking right here. These go to these narrower racks, and then all of that wire shelving and everything else in the trailer right now goes to the racks that will be going against the wall. So I assembled this one yesterday as kind of a litmus test as to location of everything and how it will work. I'm pretty happy with where I decided to place this, so I'll go ahead and I'll drill for the concrete anchors, put those in place, and then we can move on to the second narrower rack that will take the place of the 2 engine stands and everything in this area right here. And then we'll move on to the bigger task at hand, which is to clear off the walls and put up the larger racking systems. Now, by no means am I an expert on drilling concrete or masonry work or anything like that, but the way that I've always put concrete anchors in is obviously first start off with a masonry drill bit, and according to the anchors that I'm using, they require a minimum of a 3.5 inch inset into the ground, which that is right where I put this tape as kind of a depth gauge. And all that I need to do now is put the bit in a hammer drill here and then start punching holes in the floor. Now you want to be careful as you are doing this to kind of make sure that you get the drill going straight into the floor or as straight as you can. And other than that, it's kind of self-explanatory. Let the drill do the work. If you're needing to do more work, then it's probably time to get a new bit. I bought a couple of them for this job, and hopefully that will get me by. And then always wear your ear pro as well, as these hammer drills can be a little bit loud. Other than that, pretty self-explanatory, pretty straightforward. It just sucks, and it's a bit of a cumbersome task to do. So, I guess without further ado, get this plugged in, and we're ready to start drilling. So once I get my hole drilled, I like to come in with my shop vac, which I guess I could put this in a better location. But I'll come in with my shop vac, clean up all the dust from the first hole, and then I guess I can move on to the second one from there. I guess I can do these in sets of 2, and just to make things a little bit easier and a little bit quicker that way. And actually, I guess, rather than using the vac right now, why don't I go ahead and I'll drill the second hole, so that way cleanup's a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. And then we move on to this corner, the other side, so on and so forth, and get this fastened in place. So now that I have my 4 holes drilled and I cleaned the holes out, it's now time to set the anchors. So these, it's a hammer in the floor deal, and you really need to make sure you do this right the first time, as there's no taking these out afterwards. So on this package, it says, leave about 1/8 of an inch of the shank exposed, or the threaded portion exposed. So I'll do that, and then just hammer it into the ground. There it is in its home, and I can move on to the next one. So you want to be sure that you put the nut and washer on first. As you are driving these, it's pretty common to mushroom head the end of the concrete anchor. It's kind of how they work. So be sure to do that. You can hear the change in tone as it bottoms out. And once these are set, and these seem to be doing a pretty good job of not mushrooming the top of it, but I'm just removing the nut and washer so that way I can actually slide the rack over the top of it. I'm just hammering some stuff into the concrete. It's actually kind of fun, and by the time this is said and done, this rack, I should never have any worries about it falling down ever. So the final step to installing the concrete anchor is torque. And I looked up these Cobra anchors, 1/2 inch diameter. The torque spec is 50 pound-feet. So I will set my torque wrench to that. And it may feel weird as you are torquing these down, because the anchors, the way that they work, is it's pulling this bottom section up into this wedge collar. So it is going to move a bit as you are tightening it down. But trust me, it will eventually click, even if it feels kind of strange. As you are initially tightening it, you will feel it start to get tighter, as it's doing now. And eventually, there, that one is torqued. So now it's just a matter of moving on to the remaining 7, getting all of them torqued, and then we can move on to the next rack. So now that I have this rack completed, it's all installed and started to be loaded up, I need to move over to this side. So I can take some of my collection of totes. I can get the old Mark II exhaust and the old turbo system up there, this little table here, these engines. I can get all of that stuff moved out of the way, and I can begin getting the second rack erected. So this is going to be a long, laborious process to do all of this, but just looking at this area right here and how much less of a disaster zone it is when you can store things vertically as opposed to just having it explode horizontally, it's a much nicer way to do it and much more efficient. And now the second set of racks is all erected, all assembled, and already being put into use. So this rack is all Mark II specific stuff, and minus the new 5M, this rack is all Mark IV specific stuff. So nothing that's on these racks right now is stuff that's immediately going to be used, I guess, aside from the Mark II coilovers and clutch and what have you. But the stuff that is in the totes, I guess I should say, is all stuff that will be there stored for as long as it needs to be. And like I said, just the ability to store upwards versus storing outwards. There's already so much more space to move around and to walk around here. I mean, to walk through this gap, and bear in mind there's still some organization that needs to be done, but just already being able to more freely move around the shop is an incredible feeling. So tomorrow I can come in and start organizing or start putting some of this stuff in totes, get some of it squared away, moved out from the wall, and start doing the foundational work to put all the racking up. I guess we'll start on this side, and then that side over there will be in short succession. And man, this place is going to be, it's going to feel like a whole nother shop by the time all this is said and done. Today is the day that we begin tackling this nightmare here. So I cleared out the space underneath of the Mark IV and covered it up for the paintwork on the Mark II that will soon be happening. But I need to roll everything that's on casters here underneath of the Mark IV so that way I have easier access to this nightmare of a wall. So let's go ahead and get to it, see how far that we get, getting everything binned up, putting totes and everything along those lines. And hopefully in fairly short order, it'll be time to start putting up the racking on this wall. Well, the first big day of disassembly is now in the books. I got the old green pallet rack out of the way. I got the big bench out of the way. Got the little shelf out of the way right here. Tomorrow I can come in and start working down the rest of this and keep filling up totes. And I set a budget for this project that I'll probably end up blowing over. I'll probably end up exceeding the budget just with the number of totes that I'll have to buy for all of this, but it's for a good cause, for good measure, and it's just is what it is in the way that this needs to go. So another long day, another sweaty day, everything else, but I'm going to get out of here, come back in tomorrow, and keep after it. Another day here at the shop, another day getting everything packed up into totes, everything organized, and have a few other developments with what we're going to do with this. So if you see my collection of totes here, I went and bought all of the totes they had at my local Home Depot, and unfortunately had this one split and a couple of the lids got busted up as well, but not the end of the world. I can probably zip tie it back together and make it usable. But the more that I sat and thought about this, the more that I realized it's kind of now or never to paint the walls. So I went and bought this airless paint sprayer from good old Harbor Freight, as well as 10 gallons of the same Glidden satin white paint that a portion of the wall is painted with over there. So once I get all of this cleared off, I can go in, I can mask the compressor and a couple other little odds and ends that I don't want to get overspray on, and then I can go and actually spray the wall, get it all looking nice and spiffy and everything. As if I don't do it now, it's never going to get done, so a little bit more expense, a little bit more time involved with doing that, but I think it was the right move overall. So I guess without further ado, let's go ahead, go over here and start tackling these remaining racks in this remaining section right here, so that way we can put that paint sprayer into action. Another day of hard work in the books here, and I have this whole long wall all cleared off and ready to paint the rest of it. So I'm going to paint this section, and I'll probably end up respraying what's already painted just so it's all applied at the same time and it all has the same finish to it. But I'll come over to about here, as this is where the rack will start. I'll paint the whole rack section and maybe a little bit farther over, something like maybe over to the Holly sign or something like that. But I'll get all this stuff painted, all of that squared away, and then the first of the long racks can be installed, and I can start putting my collection of totes up onto it and organizing that way. So once we get this section knocked out, then I can shift focus and shift efforts over to this side, which this should hopefully be a little bit easier to do than the wall over there. This wall ended up being kind of the forgotten dumping ground, for lack of a better explanation. So a lot of that stuff, I hadn't seen the things that were on those shelves in many, many years. It was kind of neat to take a walk back through history. Actually, I guess I can show you guys as well. All of the manifolds that I've built for myself over the years, I've never gotten rid of any of them, I guess, aside from one. So this is kind of like a bit of BPA history. So we have something like this one right here, which was the first manifold I tried to make for my SC300. You can see phenomenal fit up there, great fit up all around. And frankly, I didn't really have any business building a manifold, but you have to start somewhere. And we went from that to some other ones that didn't fit appropriately. This is the first one that I fabricated and actually had it fit up well. This is an old 6-boost manifold of my buddy Matt's. And then we get into this guy right here, which was the first one that actually went into service. We have this one right here, which was my first step primary manifold. We have this, which was the first one on the SC300. I think this is an old Go AutoWorks B-Series manifold, and just kind of a hodgepodge collection of different manifolds and different bits of history from around here. So kind of cool to go through all this stuff. And things like the old manifolds, they have sentimental value, so they'll end up getting thrown on a shelf somewhere, as I'll have ample shelf space. and they can live out the rest of their days up on a shelf somewhere collecting more dust. But I apologize for not filming a whole lot during the actual process today. The day didn't start off the best with having a couple of the tote lids and the tote get busted in the process of getting everything over here. So I really just wanted to buckle down, focus, and get this stuff knocked out. So thankfully for this portion, the hard work, or I'm assuming the hard work is out of the way, I'm hoping. And hopefully that paint sprayer will make easy work of getting this wall under a nice coat of white paint. And then I already know what to expect, putting the racking up. Today is the first paint day. So I'm sure you guys realized I was doing a bit of masking in the beginning of this segment of the video. So I got all of the outlets masked, I got the compressor masked, got the breaker box and the panel masked, and now I really just have to do the floor and this stuff over here, which my buddy Sean is on his way out here right now to help me string plastic over all of those things, and then I can try to figure out how this paint sprayer works. So I went ahead and assembled it, and I have the instructions somewhere over there that I'll read through, as I've never used a paint sprayer like this before. And I have the first 5-gallon bucket of paint right here, which will need to be moved so we can put plastic down on the floor. But all of that being said, as soon as Sean gets here, we can get the rest of this masked up and I guess pull the OG banner off of the wall, and then get to putting some fresh paint on these walls. Well, the first coat of paint is laid down, and we're definitely going to need a second coat. You can see the wood's really sucking the paint up, but to make it from that corner all the way over to here within maybe a half hour, 45 minutes time, while Sean and I were sitting here BSing and everything, I cannot complain about this at all. So I'll let this dry for a bit, let the wood soak up as much of the paint as it wants to, and then I can come in, lay a second coat down, and hopefully that will be enough to provide adequate coverage, and more importantly, provide me with the opportunity to install this set of racks tomorrow. Well, the second coat of paint has been applied, and I'm sure I have some paint on my face right now from cleaning the spray gun out, but it went up pretty all right. And there's some spots that are a little bit thin, but that's all right, as this whole area through here will be behind the pallet racking. So it won't be a high visual traffic area, And wherever the racking starts, which is probably somewhere about here, I'll lay down another coat over top of what I've already sprayed as I make my way across the wall that way. But this whole section here is squared away, and provided that the plywood doesn't drink a whole bunch of paint, it'll be ready tomorrow when everything is dry and everything is said and done to have the pallet racking put in place. Well, after another long day, the first 24-foot rack section is erected. It's loaded up, at least partially loaded up, and we are well on our way to an organized shop. So it still looks a little bit chaotic in here. There's some new totes, or some old totes, some new totes, many more totes to be filled as I work my way down this wall, but that will be for the next episode, as I am absolutely worn out and beat, and this video is long enough as is. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. So firstly, I want to thank my friends Sean, and Brittany for coming out here and helping me get this 24-foot rack section put in place. Without them, it would have taken much longer. It would have been much more of a hassle, and sometimes even for somebody like me, where I try to do everything myself and probably don't admit that I need help to a fault at times, instances like this, it really is necessary, and it really is a huge help. So to you guys, I thank you very much, and we can all end up reaping the benefits of this as time goes on. So beyond them, I wanted to thank Ryan Cooper at Capital Industrial Group. So Capital is the industrial reseller that I bought all the racking from, and Ryan is the contact that I dealt with there. Ryan is a really cool guy. He made this process extraordinarily affordable and extraordinarily seamless, and I couldn't recommend them highly enough. And through a phone call, we pretty much custom tailored my racking order to exactly what I needed, and that made that process very easy. So I will link his information in the pinned comment below, And we'll also have a slide in the credits dedicated to them, and it'll have his contact information there as well. So huge moves forward and huge steps in the right direction, I guess would be the right way to phrase it. But now that this section is done, I have all these beams, I have those 4 uprights over there, and I have another wall that needs my attention. So this one, the materials and everything that will be put in totes is less, but I need to do some carpentry work and some insulation work to get that last row squared away up there before I can paint and repeat the process that just did with this here. But that'll be for the next episode, as this one, it's about time to wrap it up. So with that in mind, let's do just that. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, for coming on all these different journeys with me. I know this one is a bit of a departure from the normal automotive content, but hopefully it was still interesting, still entertaining for you guys. And maybe you learned something. I know I did, and hopefully it brought some value to your lives. But that aside, I thank you guys very much for coming on all these journeys, for taking time out of your days to come along and see what I'm doing here. And it always warms my heart, and it makes me very happy that you guys are interested enough in what's going on here that you keep coming back for more. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys very much, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. So with that in mind, that'll be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, and I will see you guys in the next episode.